Okay, so we're going to look at a few of Robert Frost's short poems, and they're succinct in that, they may be 8 lines long, but there's a lot that he condenses in there in terms of symbolism and message and metaphors and things like that. So the first one is entitled Fire and Ice, and right away the title is going to be symbols or metaphors, fire for something and ice for something, okay? Fire and ice. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. Okay, so suffice means, be sufficient. It would do the job as well as the other, okay? So we have a comparison of how the world might end. And there are two, schools of thought on that. Some say the world will end in a fire. Everything will be consumed in flames, and from time to time, one almost wonders if that is true when you hear about the fires in California and forest fires. And then ice, let's say that the sun got further and further away, and we went into like a nuclear winter where the sun is blotted out and everybody died from being cold. Okay, so that would be literal. But obviously we're not talking that here because it's a poem, and the poem is usually, a hidden message under the symbols. Okay, so let's consider what he means by saying, and he does answer the question. He does tell us what he means by fire, okay, and what he means by ice. The answers are in there. He gives us the words that fire and ice mean. So let's read it again. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say in ice. And then going back to fire, from what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. Desire. What does he mean by desire? Greed, okay? Selfishness. Everything for me, not you, okay? Relationships are destroyed because there's no love for your fellow man kind of thing, all right? And then now he talks about ice, but if it had to perish twice, two different ways, I think I know enough of hate, so that's what he means by ice, hatred, to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. It can do the job as well. So hatred and greed, okay, they're somewhat similar anyway, okay, because if you want everything for yourself, then you don't really love your neighbor. And hatred for, those who are not like you, that don't think your way, that don't share your ideals, your values, you hate them. So that's going to destroy. So now the world then means one's relationship, okay, how you get on with other people. So let's look at my first analysis here. Fire and Ice speaks about personal relationships. Every human being has to interact in some way with his fellow man. As John Donne would have it, no man is an island unto himself, all right? So how we interact with others determines the harmony and the degree of happiness that we derive from our relationships, and to a larger degree, the strength and the longevity of those relationships, whether they will last or not, okay? In Fire and Ice, Frost gives us synonyms for the words fire and ice within the poem. In line 3 and 4, he says that from his experience, he has learned that fire, or desire, is a destructive force. He says that fire is like greed, and this form of excessive desire, or avarice, can corrupt a person, All right? When one places himself at the center of all things in order to satisfy his every need and desire, it will eat at one's soul, eventually destroying that person. One's world then will end in fire. So now we move on to hatred. Ice is the second way that the world will come to an end, or relationship. All right? Frost tells us that he knows about hate or hatred, which continues to rear its ugly head in the world throughout history. Okay, all you have to do is look back over the centuries and see all the wars and the way peoples of the world have treated each other. Okay, and that would also be greed too, like moving into another country, taking their resources. That would be greed. But we're talking here now about hatred. Today, much is said and reported about hate crimes against certain groups, such as minorities or simply those people who have become marginalized for not conforming to the way everybody else behaves or the way everybody else thinks or the values those people hold, because they hold views radically different from those of the majority. So what do? We banish them, okay? Others might be banished because of their color, racial discrimination, sexual orientation, religious beliefs, gender, national origin, okay, immigration, that kind of thing, national origin. So one only has to think of the Nazi concentration camps in the 30s, the Jewish and the homosexuals and those who didn't agree with the German government, even if there were religious groups of people, Christians, that were put to death with the Jews. Immigration, in recent times, recognize how hatred or ice can wield destruction. So Frost tells us that in his mind, this hatred or ice is also great as a destructive force. The poem is a construction of 3 complete sentences, and the ideas flow forward in a natural way, tone of voice. One would almost miss the rhyming scheme because of the smoothness of the sentences. It seems like natural conversation the poet is using to tell us his thoughts about hatred and greed. Yet every end rhyme matches the sound of at least one or more other end rhymes. Not necessarily like in couplets, 2 lines at a time. He kind of like jumps them around. Like line 1 will rhyme with line 3 and 4, and 2 with number 5. And then in the next stanza, you change that rhyming scheme. So, that's pretty ingenious. The rhythm is also consistent. I am, the accent, second syllable, and tetra, 4 beats. So there are 4 beats each line with the accent on the second syllable, okay, iambic tetrameter. And that contributes to the natural flow of ideas. Not one word in the entire poem is forced to achieve this rhythm or this rhyme. Okay, so we'll go back and read that poem again before I go on to Dust of Snow. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire, but if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. Okay, so hate and the great are like the odd rhyming too, because the other ones suffice, ice, and ice again, fire, desire, and suffice somewhere. All right, so you see that he is not consistent with his rhyme, but the message is really nice. It comes across quickly and succinctly without a waste of words, and there's symbolism there, okay, by using the metaphors. All right, Dust of Snow, it's a little different. Look at the end rhymes. Crow, me, snow tree, hot, mood, pot, rude. So that's a different rhyme scheme. and it's instead of tetrameter, okay, it's only two. The way a crow. All right. So the rhythm and the rhyme is different, but let's see what he's saying. The dust of snow, not the snow, the dust of snow. Okay. So every word usually carries some meaning there. The way a crow shook down on me, dust of snow from a hemlock tree, has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rued. Now, rude, R-U-E-D, you will rude a day. Kind of, somebody might say that. It means regret. This will be something that you will not like, further on. So here he's saying that his day would have been rude, might have been destroyed, had not this incident occurred. And what is the incident? A crow on a tree, black on white, okay, in the snow, shakes its feathers, or maybe just brushes the snow off the limb of the tree, and the dust of that snow came down and landed on his head and shoulders, and he said that that had an effect on him. He was in a blue mood, he wasn't happy, and this thing happened, and it kind of like cheered him up. He felt a little better. Nature affected him in the form of the bird and the snow. So it's a short poem again, all right, and the message is succinct. It's a nice little message. The way a crow shook down on me, the dust of snow from a hemlock tree, has given my heart a change of mood, and it saved some part of a day that I had rued. All right, so easy. Another analysis here of that one. Dust of snow is only one sentence in length. It's not like 5 sentences. Like fire and ice, the poem's message flows naturally, yet poetic craftsmanship can be seen in its rhythm and its rhyme. What is he telling us? The answer is found in the meaning of the last word, rude. The literal meaning is to regret or to repent over some wrongdoing. So his wrongdoing was maybe it was mood. He was in a nasty mood, and it changed because the crow played a part. In this poem, Frost is telling us through his narrator that his heart was transformed by an incident which might have happened as he was strolling through a wood. We are told that part of his day was saved or salvaged, indicating that the former part of the day was spent in depression or some other state of anxiety, disturbance in his mind. Maybe things weren't going his way. He was worried about something. So the incident has uplifted his spirits, and it was a creature of nature that did it. Notice the poet says, the way the crow shook down the dust of snow. Almost like the crow knew what was going on. He looked down at the sky and he says, "Come on, get out of that. Shake it off. Get with it." It would suggest that the crow recognized the narrator's gloom and more or less tells him to cheer up and deliberately showers him with the dust of snow. The contrast of color, too, black crow, white snow, also suggests his change of mood from black, mood, to white, spirited and uplifting. So now he's wearing white to suggest his elation, his joy. The next poem, Nothing Gold Can Stay, is probably one of his more well-known, recognized poems. You hear it mentioned often. And notice how short it is, okay? Look at the rhyme again. Gold, hold, flower, hour, leaf, grief, day, stay. So different rhyme scheme. They're rhyming couplets. And again, just as we saw in Fire and Ice, nothing gold can stay. Gold is the key word, all right, and it suggests what gold usually does suggest, all right, something valuable, something that we long to possess, let's say, okay, gold. That's just a symbol, all right? So it's something precious. And this is the way the poem goes. I'm sure you've read it already before. Nature's first green is gold, her hottest hue to hold. Her early leaf is a flower, but only so an hour. Soon leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief, so dawn goes down to day, nothing gold can stay. All right, so short poem, and this shouldn't be too difficult to unravel. Nature's first green, so what would that be? Springtime, when all of the flowers and leaves and everything is budding new, so you have lots of blossoms, and the fragrance of that is a fluvium of wonderful smells in nature, okay, perfumes of all the flowers and everything. And that would be precious. So nature's first green, everything that we see in late April, early May, right into June, it's a precious time. And it's gold is precious. So first green is gold, precious. But we're told, and notice every line he has a negative after it. But her hottest hue to hold. You can't. Hue is the depth of that color. You know, the radiance of it, the brilliance of the color. All right, it's a hue, and you cannot hold it because what happens to the daffodils? What happens to the forsythia? What happens to all of the flowers that we see in the shrubs? They give way, and they become green. They lose that, and then eventually they become brown or gold in the fall. So her early leaf becomes a flower in the sense of a blossom, but only so an hour. Of course, that's a metaphor, an hour, exaggerated, that short period of time. So he uses an hour. So, no, soon leaf gives way to leaf. One by one, each blossom turns to a leaf and then subsides to another leaf. And then before you know it, you have an entire tree covered in foliage of leaves, not blossoms. And here's the negative. No, so Eden, in the same way, sank to grief. Paradise was lost. And all of the preciousness of Eden, the Garden of Eden, is gone. And we regret that, we don't have that anymore. And another poet, Gerard Manley Hopkins, writes an entire poem on spring, saying that spring is nothing but a trace of what the Garden of Eden was, and just to let us know that this is what we're missing, all right? For that brief period of time, we are giving a little bit of a taste of what spring or the Eden was when we experience spring. So there's that idea there too. And then the last idea is that dawn being, the precious time of the day in the early morning when everything is soft and light, and you might hear birds in the spring, and everything is gay. What happens? It goes down to day, gives way, doesn't last. So the last line is the title, and it's the theme. Nothing precious lasts. There's a sense of mutability, change. The old axiom that the only constant in life is change. All right, so that's what he has here. Let me see. Right. This poem has only 8 lines, yet 6 of those lines are complete sentences. The entire poem revolves around one central theme. All earthly happiness is short-lived, relying almost entirely on the use of symbols. Frost uses the concept of nature's mutability to convey his theme. The first green of nature, referring to the beauty and preciousness of early spring, green symbolizing newness or freshness, which is as precious as gold when the landscape is filled with a multitude of colors and fragrances from budding shrubs and trees. Pale green maple buds, yellow wisteria shrubs, red azaleas, purple lilacs, pink cherry blossoms, white apple blossoms, all take on the appearance of flowers. As beautiful as these signs of early spring may be, they are short-lived, for they quickly lose their radiance, their hue of color. Hence, their hue is difficult to retain or hold on to, the hardest hue to hold. These early blossoms, which have the appearances of flowers, last for only a hyperbolic hour. Hyperbole there. An hour is 60 minutes, and obviously it doesn't mean that, literally. Echoing the line from the musical Fiddler on the Roof, swiftly flow the days, seedlings turn overnight into sunflowers, blossoming even as we gaze. Okay, but then they go away. The next two lines are really a reality check, as Frost tells us that these so-called flowers are not here to stay. No, one by one the trees move to a lower level, as the definition of subside would have it. They subside, leaf subsides to leaf. One by one the blossoms or flowers give way to leaves. It is intrinsic in their nature to do this. Holding on to their buds any longer would be unnatural to the order of things which exist in nature. Here, Frost makes the literary or biblical allusion to the Garden of Eden, where paradise was lost when Adam disobeyed God. His punishment has become ours as well. As a result, we live in a temporal world of nature where happiness is temporal as well. No joy is eternal in this world. Okay, so that's we see that in two poems by Shelley, both entitled Mutability, and they bring out the exact same theme here. Emily Dickinson does it as well in one of her poems, where a child is, chasing after the bee, and then the bee is, flying around the garden, and the little child is chasing it, and eventually the bee sets off for the sky, leaving the little boy looking up, bewildered, so nothing lasts. Normally, when we think of the concept of sunrise and sunset, we envision the sun's upward journey in the sky to the day's midpoint, which we have designated as noon, and then the remainder of the day involves the sun's downward journey to eventide. Right? Frost makes this comparison of the Garden of Eden and its eventual loss of paradise to the early part of the day, dawn, when all is quiet and covered in a soft dew, with birds waking from their slumber to greet a new day, to midday, going down to day, when the world is occupied with the business of living, getting and spending, and man's laying waste his powers, as we see in Wordsworth's poem. In other words, the dawn has to subside to daytime. Once again, a suggestion of moving downward, right, to a lower level. Dawn is not described as going up to noontime, day. Instead, it's going down from the very moment it starts. It's a downward journey. So Frost is telling us that by its very nature, even the day itself does not bring lasting charm or happiness, for it starts its downward journey as soon as it begins its route, as Eden sank to grief when paradise was lost. He concludes the poem with the statement that nothing of worth in this world will remain so for very long. The reader can supply his own examples of this idea, as they might be found in ideas such as power, fame, material possessions. All are doomed to that realm of obsolescence in due time. One can think of a trailer load of flashy new automobiles on their way to a car showroom, and then on the other side of the street, we see another one heading in the opposite direction. It's a trailer load of rusty automobiles on their way to a junkyard, crusher. Okay, so they lasted. They had their period of time, but they all eventually, doomed, as we are too. Our, our lives are doomed to dust. All those pieces of trash we see on the sidewalks waiting for the sanitation truck had one day been precious items on store shelves or perhaps under a Christmas tree. So the poem may seem a bit pessimistic, but Frost is sharing a universal statement about the reality of life. The statement is worthy of thought, and Frost conveyed his message succinctly in 8 lines of beautifully written poetry. His use of alliteration, such as her heart is hue to hold 4 times for ages, and dawn goes down to day, demonstrates one example of his careful craftsmanship, and his choice of the rhythm and the rhyme for this poem illustrates consistency with its subject matter, for the sound is that of the voice dropping to the end of each line, creating an emphatic effect of finality. Ding, da, dun, da, dun. Everything goes down today. So that kind of idea. So that's the poem in a nutshell.